I came home and found my belongings in the basement, while my bedroom was given to my sister. So I moved in with my grandparents and never went back, despite my parents' attempts to reconnect later. I just came home from my after-school shift at the grocery store to find all my stuff dumped in the basement like garbage. Not carefully moved, not packed with any kind of consideration, just straight up thrown down there in random boxes and trash bags like I was being evicted from a crack house. My sister Ashley and her deadbeat boyfriend were already set up in my room. They had their stuff everywhere. His gaming setup was on my desk. Her makeup crap was all over my dresser. They were literally unpacking like they just closed on their first house or something. And when I stood there in the doorway trying to process what I was seeing, Ashley didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. She just goes, "Oh, hey, Mom and Dad said we could have this room since it's bigger. Your stuff's in the basement." Just like that, like she was telling me the weather forecast. I'm not going to lie. I just stood there for a solid 10 seconds trying to figure out if this was some kind of prank, like maybe I'd walk downstairs and find my actual room set up somewhere else, or my parents would jump out and yell surprise. But nope, this was real life. My childhood bedroom that I'd had since I was 7 years old was just gone. Handed over to my 22-year-old sister and her unemployed boyfriend like I didn't even exist. I went downstairs to find my parents watching TV in the living room. Both of them knew I was home. Both of them heard me come in. Neither one bothered to give me a heads up about the whole room situation. My mom didn't even look up from her show when I walked in. My dad glanced over with this expression that told me he knew exactly what I was about to say, and he was already annoyed about it. I asked them what was going on with my room, tried to keep my voice calm and reasonable, asked why all my stuff was in the basement, and why Ashley and her boyfriend were moving into my space. My dad didn't even mute the TV. He just turned his head slightly and said, "Your sister needs that room. She and Jordan are saving up for their own place and they need more space than the guest room. You'll sleep in the basement for now." For now. Like this was temporary, like they were doing me some kind of favor by letting me stay in my own house. I pointed out that the basement wasn't even finished. It had concrete floors, exposed pipes, and it got cold as heck down there in the winter. The only bedroom was this tiny area behind the furnace that was basically a storage closet with a small window. My dad's response, "Then you better dress warm and you're still paying rent. $300 a month, same as before." Let me back up and explain that part because it's important. I'd been paying my parents $300 a month since I turned 16 and got my job at Fletcher's Grocery. They told me it was to teach me responsibility and prepare me for the real world. Never mind that my sister had lived at home rent-free until she was 21 and only moved out because she got her own apartment with her ex-boyfriend. When that relationship crashed and burned 6 months ago, she moved back home, also rent-free. I'd been working 25 hours a week while maintaining a 3.9 GPA because my parents said if my grades dropped below a 3.5, I'd lose my phone and internet privileges. Ashley barely graduated high school with a 2.1 and nobody said a word. She went to community college for 1 semester, failed 3 out of 4 classes, and dropped out. My parents' reaction was, college isn't for everyone, and they let her move back home with zero expectations. But sure, I was the one who needed to learn responsibility. So there I was, standing in my living room, being told I was getting demoted to the basement while still paying the same rent. I asked my dad if that seemed fair to him. He looked at me like I just asked the dumbest question in human history and said, "Life's not fair. Your sister deserves that room more than you do. She's older and she's been through a lot." Been through a lot. Ashley's been through a lot. The girl who's never held a job for more than 3 months, who got fired from a coffee shop for showing up late every single day, who borrowed $2,000 from our parents last year and never paid back a cent, that Ashley had been through a lot and therefore deserved my room. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I just said, "Okay," and went down to the basement to see what I was working with. My mom called after me something about appreciating what you have, but I was already down the stairs. The basement was worse than I remembered. They dumped my stuff in the middle of the floor in no particular order. My clothes were mixed with my books. My gaming stuff was tangled up with my bedding. And my actual bed frame was just leaning against the wall in pieces. No mattress. Turns out they'd left my mattress in my old room for Ashley and Jordan. I was apparently supposed to sleep on the ancient futon that had been down there since 2015. The one with springs poking through the cushions and mysterious stains that nobody wanted to discuss. I spent that evening organizing my stuff in silence. Put my clothes in the old dresser that smelled like mildew. Set up my desk in the corner near the one outlet that actually worked. Tried to make that futon semi-comfortable with every blanket I owned. The whole time I could hear Ashley and Jordan upstairs laughing and playing music in my actual room where I'd done my homework for 9 years, where I'd learned to play guitar, where I'd stayed up late reading books with a flashlight under the covers when I was supposed to be sleeping. That night, I barely slept. The basement got down to about 55 degrees, and the futon felt like sleeping on a pile of broken dreams. I could hear the furnace kicking on every 20 minutes and the sound of Ashley and Jordan walking around above me. Around 2 in the morning, I heard them going at it, and I literally had to put my headphones in and blast music to drown it out. When I woke up at 6 for school the next morning, I was stiff cold and pissed. I went upstairs to take a shower and found Jordan in the bathroom. He'd been in there for 30 minutes doing his hair or whatever. When he finally came out, I had exactly 8 minutes to shower and get ready before I had to catch my bus. I made it work, but I was still damp when I left the house. This became my new routine. Wake up freezing in the basement, race upstairs to fight for bathroom time, try to grab breakfast while my mom cooked for Ashley and Jordan, take the bus to school, go to my after-school job, come home to the basement, repeat. Meanwhile, Ashley and Jordan were living like newlyweds in my childhood bedroom, eating food I helped pay for through my rent, using utilities I contributed to, and contributing absolutely nothing to the household. 2 weeks into this arrangement, my dad added a new rule. I wasn't allowed to use the main floor bathroom anymore except for quick trips. I had to use the basement bathroom for showers because Ashley and Jordan need their privacy in the mornings. The basement bathroom was this nightmare cave with exposed pipes and a shower that only had cold water unless you ran it for 15 minutes first. The sink was stained yellow from decades of hard water. The toilet ran constantly. The mirror was cracked down the middle. There was black mold growing in the corners that nobody had bothered to clean in probably 5 years in, probably. I didn't complain, didn't argue, just said okay and adapted. Started showering at night instead. Set my alarm earlier so I could get the water warm before school. Bought cleaning supplies with my own money, and spent a Saturday scrubbing that bathroom until it was at least sanitary. My parents didn't notice, or if they did, they didn't say anything. I was playing the long game here, and I knew that keeping my cool was essential. The food situation got worse too. My mom would cook these big family dinners for Ashley and Jordan. Real meals, pot roast, lasagna, chicken, parmesan, the works. She'd call them down for dinner, and they'd all eat together in the dining room while I was still at work. By the time I got home around 9, there'd be nothing left except maybe some rice or a dried-out piece of chicken. My mom's excuse was that she didn't know what time I'd be home, so she couldn't save me a plate. Never mind that I worked the same schedule every week, and she could have easily set aside food for me. I started eating before my shift, grabbed sandwiches from the grocery store deli using my employee discount, kept granola bars and instant noodles in my basement room. Lost about 10 pounds that first month just from not having access to regular meals. My mom commented on it once, said I looked thin. I told her I was fine. She didn't push it. 3 weeks in, Jordan decided he needed to borrow my gaming system because his was broken and he was having a hard time with job interviews. Like playing video games was somehow going to help him land a job. My parents backed him up when I said no, said I needed to be a team player and help out family. My dad actually gave me this whole speech about how Jordan was going through a tough time and needed support and I should be more understanding. I pointed out that I'd bought that Xbox with my own money from my actual job. The job I worked 25 hours a week while maintaining honor roll grades. Jordan had never held a job for more than 2 months and spent most of his days sleeping until noon. My dad's response was, "That's not the point. Family helps family." I watched Jordan carry my Xbox upstairs and set it up in my old room. He never brought it back. Never even thanked me for it. Just acted like it had always been his. When I asked about it a month later, he said he couldn't find it. Probably sold it for cash, but I couldn't prove anything. The breaking point with the bathroom situation came about a month in. I'd gotten up early to shower before school. Started running the water to warm it up, and was waiting in my room when Jordan came downstairs and locked himself in the basement bathroom. He was in there for 45 minutes, taking a shower, doing his hair, whatever. I knocked on the door twice to ask how much longer he'd be. He ignored me. I ended up having to skip my shower entirely and go to school feeling grimy and gross. When I got home that night and mentioned it to my parents, my dad said I should have used the upstairs bathroom. I reminded him that I wasn't allowed to use the upstairs bathroom anymore because Ashley and Jordan needed privacy. He said I should have gotten up earlier then. I'd been up since 5:30. How much earlier was I supposed to wake up? That's when I made the call. See, my grandpa on my mom's side is this quiet guy who doesn't say much but sees everything. He's been watching this family dynamic for years. And I knew he wasn't a fan of how my parents operated. He'd pulled me aside at Christmas last year and told me if I ever really needed anything, I should call him. At the time, I'd thought it was just something adults say, one of those empty offers people make to be polite. But sitting there in my freezing basement bedroom wearing 2 hoodies and thermal pants at 10 p.m. on a school night, I realized he'd meant it. He answered on the second ring. I told him everything. The whole story from start to finish. The room situation, the rent, the double standards, Ashley getting everything while I got nothing. The basement, the cold showers, the stolen Xbox Jordan, using my bathroom, the missing meals, all of it. I didn't embellish, didn't exaggerate, just laid out the facts in the same calm voice I'd been using with my parents for the last month. My voice cracked a few times, but I kept it together. Grandpa listened without interrupting. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, but he didn't say a word until I finished. When I was done, there was this long pause, maybe 15 seconds of silence. Then he said, "Pack your essentials. I'm picking you up Saturday morning at 8. Don't tell your parents." I asked if he was sure. Told him I didn't want to cause problems between him and my mom. He said the only problem was that his daughter had forgotten how to be a parent, and he wasn't going to watch his grandson suffer because of it. Then he told me to get some sleep, and he'd see me Saturday. I barely slept that night. Spent most of it lying on that awful futon thinking about what I was about to do. Part of me felt guilty, like I was abandoning my family or being dramatic. But the bigger part of me felt this weird sense of relief, like I'd been holding my breath underwater for a month and someone had just thrown me a life preserver. The next few days were surreal. I went through the motions at school and work like normal, came home to the basement like normal, acted like everything was fine. My parents didn't notice anything different. Why would they? They barely noticed me anyway. Ashley and Jordan were too wrapped up in their own little world to pay attention. I was just the kid in the basement who paid rent and stayed out of the way. Friday night, I started packing. Did it quietly after everyone was asleep. Took only what mattered: clothes, toiletries, my laptop, my phone charger, important school stuff. Left behind anything I couldn't carry in one backpack. The Xbox was already gone anyway. My guitar had a broken string and I didn't have time to fix it. Most of my books could stay. I'd buy new ones if I needed them. The hardest part was getting my documents. I waited until 2 in the morning when I knew everyone was asleep. Crept upstairs to my parents' office where they kept the file cabinet, found my folder: birth certificate, social security card, passport, immunization records, all of it. Took everything that proved I existed as a legal human being. My parents would probably notice eventually, but by then, it would be too late. Saturday morning, I was waiting outside at 7:55 with a backpack full of clothes and my important documents. It was cold. Early November in the Midwest, temperature probably in the low 40s. I could see my breath in the air. I sat on the front steps and waited. Part of me still couldn't believe this was really happening. Grandpa pulled up in his old truck at exactly 8 a.m. Same truck he'd been driving since before I was born. Dark blue Ford F-150 with rust spots on the wheel wells and a dent in the back bumper from when he'd backed into a pole at Home Depot 3 years ago. I'd never been so happy to see a vehicle in my life. I threw my bag in the back and got in. He didn't ask if I was sure, didn't question my decision, didn't give me some speech about family, or try to talk me into giving my parents another chance. He just looked at me, nodded once, and said, "Seatbelt." Then he put the truck in gear and drove. We didn't talk much during the drive. Grandpa wasn't really a talker anyway. He had the radio on low, some old country station. The heat was blasting. I realized about 10 minutes in that I was actually warm for the first time in a month. Really warm, not wearing 3 layers and still shivering. Warm, just comfortable, normal warm. I almost cried. We stopped at the house he shared with my grandma about 40 minutes away. It was this nice ranch-style place in a quiet neighborhood. They'd lived there since my mom was a kid. I'd been there a million times for holidays and birthdays, but I'd never really looked at it as a potential home. It was just Grandpa and Grandma's house. But pulling into that driveway that morning, seeing the leaves scattered across the lawn and the porch light still on. Even though it was daytime, it felt different. It felt like a refuge. Grandma met me at the door before we even got out of the truck. She must have been watching for us. She had this sad smile on her face and pulled me into a hug that lasted longer than usual. Didn't say anything, just held me. Then she stepped back, put her hands on my shoulders, looked me right in the eyes and said, "You're home now. Come on, I made breakfast. The guest room was ready." Like she'd been preparing for this bed, made with fresh sheets, fresh clean towels folded on the dresser. The closet was empty and ready for my stuff. There was even a desk set up in the corner with a good lamp and a cup full of pens. The whole room smelled like fabric softener and that specific scent that old houses have. It was the nicest bedroom I'd seen in a month. Grandma made pancakes and bacon, real breakfast hot food as much as I wanted. She kept refilling my plate without asking if I wanted more, just watched me eat with this satisfied look on her face. Grandpa sat across from me reading the newspaper, occasionally glancing up to make sure I was okay. Neither of them asked me questions about what happened. They just let me exist in their space without pressure or judgment or expectations. After breakfast, Grandma showed me around, reminded me where everything was even though I'd been in this house 100 times. Showed me which bathroom was mine, told me where the extra blankets were if I got cold at night, said I was welcome to any food in the kitchen whenever I wanted it. Didn't mention rent, didn't mention chores, just said, "This is your home now," and left it at that. My parents didn't notice I was gone until Sunday afternoon. I'd worked a closing shift Saturday night, and they probably assumed I was just hiding in the basement like usual. My mom called my phone around 2 p.m. Sunday. I didn't answer. She called 4 more times. Then my dad called. I ignored all of them. Finally, my dad texted, "Where are you? Get home now." I texted back, "I'm at Grandpa's. I don't live with you anymore." My phone immediately started blowing up. Calls, texts, voicemails. My mom was crying about how disrespectful I was being. My dad said I was making a huge mistake. Ashley called me dramatic and selfish. I blocked all of them. Monday morning, Grandpa drove me to school. He'd already handled the enrollment paperwork using his address. Told me I could stay as long as I needed. No rent, no rules, except keep my grades up and be respectful. His only requirement was that I keep working and save my money. That evening, my parents showed up. I watched from upstairs as my dad got out of the car and marched to the front door. Grandpa answered before he could knock. The conversation lasted maybe 5 minutes. Then Grandpa stepped back and shut the door in my dad's face. My parents sat in their car for another 10 minutes before leaving. Later, Grandpa told me my dad had threatened to call the police. Grandpa's response was, "Go ahead. He's 16 with his own income and documentation. You've been charging him rent and housing him in an unfinished basement with no heat. Let's see how that conversation goes." My dad didn't call the police. The next few weeks were weird. I kept expecting my parents to show up or for this whole thing to blow up somehow, but it didn't. Grandpa had called their bluff and they had no moves left. They couldn't report me missing because I wasn't missing. They couldn't force me home because I was paying my own way. They'd backed themselves into a corner by treating me like an adult tenant instead of a minor child. Grandma told me later that she'd had a conversation with my mom. My mom tried the whole "he's my son and he belongs at home" routine. Grandma shut that down with, "You moved him to a freezing basement and gave his room to his adult sister and her unemployed boyfriend. You charged him rent while giving her free housing. You treated him like a tenant so he found a better landlord. School became better almost immediately. I wasn't exhausted all the time anymore. I could shower in peace. I had heat. My grades actually improved and I made honor roll that semester. My job situation improved too. I'd been working at Fletcher's Grocery for almost a year. I was good at it. Showed up on time, did my work, didn't complain. My manager liked me, and when I told her I'd moved in with my grandparents and needed more hours, she bumped me up to 30 hours a week. I was making decent money for a 16-year-old and saving almost all of it. About 6 weeks after I moved out, my dad texted me. Just one message. "Your mother wants to talk. Family dinner at the house Sunday at 6. I didn't respond. He texted again the next day. "Are you coming to dinner or not?" I texted back, "No. We need to discuss this situation like adults." "There's nothing to discuss. I don't live there anymore. You're still my son, and you'll show me respect." I didn't respond to that one. My mom tried a different approach. She called my grandma and asked her to talk some sense into me. My grandma told her I was showing perfect sense by removing myself from a toxic situation. My mom hung up. Ashley tried too. Sent me this long text about how I was tearing the family apart and being immature. Said Jordan had moved back home with his parents and she needed help with rent now. Apparently, my parents had started charging her after I left. Karma's funny like that. She actually had the audacity to ask if I could loan her money for her first month. I left her on red. Around month 3, my dad showed up at Fletcher's while I was working. Just walked into the store during my shift and stood there waiting for me to notice him. When I did, he waved me over. I kept stocking shelves. He walked over to me. "We need to talk," he said. "I'm working," I said. "This is important. So is my job." He got that red face thing happening again. The same look he'd had at Grandpa's door, but he was in public now, and he knew better than to make a scene. He lowered his voice and said, "Your mother is upset. Ashley is struggling. We need you to come home and work this out like a family." I stopped stalking and looked at him. Really looked at him. This was the guy who told me life wasn't fair when he kicked me to the basement. Who'd said my sister deserved my room more than I did? Who demanded rent money while I froze my butt off every night and fought for bathroom time every morning? And now, he wanted me to come home and work it out because things weren't going according to his plan. "No," I said. "Excuse me. No, I'm not coming home. I'm not working anything out. I'm fine where I am. You're 16 years old. You don't get to make that decision. You made me a tenant when you started charging rent. Tenants can move when they find better housing. I found better housing. That's not how family works." "Yeah. Well, I learned about family from you, Dad. You taught me that family is transactional, that it's about who deserves what and who provides the most value." I took those lessons to heart, and I found a better deal. His face went from red to purple. I thought he might actually blow a gasket right there in aisle 7, but he didn't. He just stood there breathing hard for a few seconds, then turned and walked out. My manager came over after he left and asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. She said if he came back and bothered me again to let her know, and she'd call the cops. That was the last time my dad tried to talk to me in person. The text continued, though. My mom would send these long guilt trip messages about how much she missed me and how hurt she was that I'd abandoned the family. My dad would send shorter, angrier messages about responsibility and respect. Ashley would pop in occasionally to complain about her life and how unfair it was that she had to pay rent now. I ignored all of it. Blocked them eventually when the messages got to be too much. Life at Grandpa's place was good. Really good. I had my own room with actual heat. I could take hot showers whenever I wanted. Grandma cooked real meals that I didn't have to fight for. Grandpa helped me with my homework sometimes and never once asked me for rent money. They treated me like family. Real family. The kind that actually gives a damn about your well-being. I kept working, kept saving, kept. By the time I turned 17, I had almost $8,000 in the bank. My manager promoted me to shift lead, which came with a raise. I started taking online courses for business management. Figured I'd get a head start on college credit. Senior year, I applied to colleges, got accepted to 3 good schools with partial scholarships. I'd saved enough to cover what the scholarships didn't. Grandpa offered to help with the rest, but I told him he'd already done enough. He insisted. We compromised. He'd help with dorm costs if I promised to visit during breaks. My parents found out about college through Facebook. Ashley had apparently been stalking my profile. My mom sent me a text. "Congratulations on your college acceptance. We'd love to talk about this and help you plan." Too little, too late, Mom. I graduated high school with honors. Grandpa and Grandma came to the ceremony. They took me out to dinner after, and Grandpa gave me a card with $1,000 in it, said he was proud of me. That was the first time I'd cried in probably 2 years. My parents didn't come to graduation. Ashley texted me the day before asking if she could come. I told her there weren't enough tickets. There were. I just didn't want her there. Summer before college, I worked full-time at Fletcher's, saved every penny, bought everything I'd need for my dorm, helped Grandpa fix up the back deck as a thank you for everything. Those were probably the best 3 months of my life up to that point. Just working, hanging out with my grandparents, getting ready for the next chapter. Move-in day came in August. Grandpa and Grandma drove me to campus in Grandpa's truck, helped me carry my stuff up 3 flights of stairs to my dorm room. Grandma fussed over how I arranged my desk. Grandpa helped me set up my mini fridge. When it was time for them to leave, Grandma hugged me for a solid minute. Grandpa shook my hand, then pulled me in for a brief hug and told me to make him proud. That first semester was rough academically, but I made it work. The classes were harder than high school. I struggled with calculus initially. Spent hours in the tutoring center. My study habits from high school helped, but I had to adapt them. I joined the business club and the accounting society. Made some friends. My roommate Jake was studying computer science. We got along fine. Sometimes we'd talk about life over midnight pizza. I told him my story. He said it sounded like a movie. First semester grades came back in December. I pulled a 3.2 GPA. Not amazing, but solid, considering I was adjusting to college life while working part-time and being completely independent. Grandpa said he was proud of me. Winter break. I went back to Grandpa's house. My mom had texted asking if I was coming home for Christmas. I told her I already had plans. Christmas at Grandpa's was perfect. Small, quiet, actually enjoyable. Grandma made her famous ham. Grandpa and I watched football. They gave me practical gifts I actually needed. A good winter coat, new work boots, a gift card to the college bookstore. I gave them a framed photo from graduation. Grandma cried and put it on the mantle right away. Ashley texted me on Christmas Eve saying, Mom was really hurt and I was being selfish. I blocked her number and went back to watching football. Spring semester. I got more involved on campus. Made friends with guys in the business program. My grades improved, brought my GPA up to a 3.5 by the end of the semester. Made Dean's List for the first time. Sophomore year, I got an apartment off campus with Jake and 2 other guys. My share was $350 a month. That fall, I met Jenna in my business law class. She actually asked questions during lecture. Good questions. We ended up as partners on a group project. Spent 3 weeks in the library working on it. I learned she was majoring in finance. She was smart-driven, had clear goals. We clicked. After we finished the project, we kept meeting up, started getting coffee studied together. She told me about her family. Her parents had been married for 30 years and supported both their kids equally. It sounded like a different universe from my experience. I told her about my situation one night over pizza. Expected her to think I was being dramatic. She didn't judge. She said it sounded like I'd made the right call and that my parents sounded toxic. She got it without me having to justify or explain myself. We started dating officially in December. She met Grandpa and Grandma over winter break. Grandma loved her immediately. Grandpa said she's good people. Don't mess it up. I met her parents over spring break. They were great, normal, functional. They asked me questions about school and my future and actually listened to my answers. Her dad and I talked about accounting for like an hour. Her mom showed me old photo albums and told embarrassing stories about Jenna as a kid. It was the kind of family dinner I'd imagined other people had, but never really experienced myself. That's when it really hit me. What I'd been missing, what normal family dynamics looked like. Jenna's parents didn't have a golden child. They didn't charge rent or play favorites. They supported both their kids equally and wanted them to succeed. It wasn't transactional. It was just love. Simple as that. Senior year, I got a job offer from the firm I'd been interning with. Good salary, benefits, room for advancement. I accepted immediately. Graduated in May with honors and a 3.7 GPA. Grandpa and Grandma came to graduation. So did Jenna and her parents. We all went to dinner after, and Grandpa picked up the check. My parents didn't come to this graduation either. My mom sent a card with $50 in it. I donated the money to a homeless shelter and recycled the card. I started my job in June. Found a decent apartment near the office. Jenna and I moved in together in August. Life was good. I had a career, a girlfriend I loved, my own place, financial stability. My parents reached out occasionally over the next year. My mom would send Facebook messages. My dad would text with awkward attempts at conversation. Ashley sent me a friend request that I ignored. I kept them all at arm's length. Then Grandpa got sick. It started small, forgetting things, getting confused. Grandma called me worried. The doctor said it was early onset dementia. I started visiting every weekend, helped Grandma with whatever she needed, took Grandpa to appointments. He'd forget my name sometimes, but he always remembered that I was important to him. My mom found out through social media. She called for the first time in over a year, wanted to know why nobody told her. I said maybe if she'd been more involved, she would have known sooner. She hung up. She showed up at the hospital when Grandpa was admitted, brought my dad and Ashley. Grandma was polite but cold. I didn't say anything to them. My mom tried to talk to me in the hallway, said we needed to put our differences aside for Grandpa's sake. I told her I didn't have any differences with Grandpa. He'd been there for me when they threw me in a basement and charged me rent. My differences were with her. She cried. I walked away. Grandpa passed 3 weeks later. Grandma was with him. So was I. It was quiet and sad and exactly right. The funeral was small. My parents came. They sat in the back. I sat in the front with Grandma and Jenna. During the service, I talked about how he'd saved me when I was 16, how he'd given me a home when I needed one, how he'd shown me what real family looked like, how he'd been more of a father to me in 4 years than my actual father had been in 16. After the funeral, my mom tried to approach me. I walked the other direction. The next few months were hard, helping Grandma adjust, sorting through Grandpa's things. Jenna was amazing through all of it. One Saturday, while cleaning out Grandpa's office, I found a folder with my name on it. Inside were copies of every report card, certificate, award. I'd sent him photos from my graduations. He'd kept it all. I cried for the first time since he died. Grandma found me there. Said Grandpa used to show that folder to anyone who'd listen, that he'd brag about his grandson who'd made something of himself. That made me cry harder. Life moved on. Jenna and I got engaged on our 3rd anniversary, started planning a small wedding, asked Grandma to walk me down the aisle since Grandpa couldn't. She said yes through tears. We set a date for the following spring. My mom found out about the engagement through social media. She called and asked why she had to hear about it from Facebook. I told her maybe if she'd been more involved, she would have known sooner. She asked if she was invited to the wedding. I said no. She hung up. The wedding was in April. Small ceremony, close friends, Jenna's family, Grandma, about 40 people total. Grandma walked me down the aisle. It was exactly what we wanted. My parents weren't there. The day before the wedding, my mom sent a long text about how hurt she was, how she was my mother and deserved to be there, how I was making a mistake cutting them out. I read it once and deleted it, didn't respond. At the reception, Grandma gave a toast, talked about how I'd shown up at her door at 16 with nothing but a backpack and determination. How Grandpa had been so proud of the man I'd become. How family wasn't about blood, it was about who showed up when you needed them. The room got pretty quiet. Half the people there knew my story. Jenna and I bought a house a year later. 3 bedrooms, nice yard, good neighborhood. Had Grandma over for dinner every Sunday. Sometimes Jenna's parents would join us. My mom texted once asking for my new address. I didn't reply. 2 years after the wedding, Jenna and I had our first kid, a boy. We named him after Grandpa. Grandma came to the hospital the day he was born, held him and cried. Jenna's parents came that evening with balloons and flowers. My mom found out through a cousin's Facebook post 3 days later. She sent a text. I just found out I have a grandson. When can I meet him? I blocked her number. A week later, my parents showed up at our house unannounced. Just pulled into the driveway on a Saturday afternoon. I was in the front yard with the baby in a carrier. They got out of the car and my mom started walking toward me with this big smile like nothing had ever happened. I picked up my son and went inside, locked the door. My dad knocked for 5 minutes. I didn't answer. Eventually they left. My mom tried calling from different numbers, left voicemails about grandparents' rights and how she deserved to know her grandson. I saved the voicemails in case I needed them later for a restraining order, but it never came to that. After a few weeks, the call stopped. Ashley reached out a year later, sent me a Facebook message saying she'd gotten her life together, had a real job. Now been at the same company for 18 months, was in a serious relationship with a guy who actually had his life together. Said she understood now why I'd left, that our parents had been wrong, that she was sorry for her part in it. I read the message twice, thought about it for a few days, then I responded, told her I appreciated the apology, that I was glad she was doing better, that maybe someday we could talk, but I wasn't ready yet. She said she understood. We started texting occasionally after that, nothing deep, just updates. She sent me a picture when she got promoted at work. I sent her one when my son took his first steps. It wasn't much, but it was something. She'd been 22 and stupid when the room thing happened. People change. Maybe she actually had. My parents tried one more time when my son was 3, sent a letter through Ashley, said they'd been going to counseling, that they understood now how badly they'd messed up, that they wanted a chance to make things right, that they wanted to meet their grandson. I read the letter, showed it to Jenna. She said it was my call. I thought about it for a week. Then I wrote back, told them I appreciated that they'd acknowledged their mistakes, but that some things couldn't be fixed, that I'd built a good life without them, and I was keeping it that way, that my son would grow up surrounded by people who actually showed up when it mattered. I never heard from them again after that.